Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest ASP webinar. For all of those who haven't attended before, the purpose of these is to give you lots of hints and tips as to how to make your website perform better. When I say perform better, predominantly it's making sure you get more of the things on which you have a website for, i.e. more leads, more sign-ups, more visitors, and ultimately driving more sponsors, exhibitors, attendees to your events. So my name's John Monk. I am Head of Performance here at ASP. Again, for those of you who may not have met me before, I have quite a long background in search engine optimization and conversion rate optimization, again, to make websites perform better. Over my time, I've worked in many industries, so bring to events quite a bit of experience from outside of events. I've specialised in this for the last 4 years. And certainly one of the things that I have learnt is that the events industry typically is a little bit behind the curve when it comes to search. So hopefully I'll bring to you some experience from outside of the industry and some great hints and tips in which you can practically follow onto your website. And today's session, that's very much what it's going to be about. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and the impact that it's having on the industry, on search, what will happen in relation to your website, and then I'll drill down to some quite nitty-gritty and practical small elements in which you can add to your website, because despite what's happening in relation to AI, there's still some core fundamentals which still remain the same, and some key elements on the ASP content management system in which you need to fill out, and I'll show you what you need to do there. So the session is going to run about 45 minutes with a bit of a Q&A session at the end. Katie is going to be there taking questions. So if you have any questions, pop them in. She'll fire them over to me. And if there's anything relevant along the way, I can answer them as we go along. Or if it's something bigger, we can address that at the end. So really welcome all of your questions. A copy of the presentation will be sent around afterwards, and the session's also being recorded, so you'll be able to see a recording of this afterwards as well. I'd like to start with so traditionally, and coming to events, I found that many events websites are not optimized. And when I say optimized, it's for organic search, and that's specifically helping your event to be found. Traditionally, it was in Google and obviously in Bing in a small extent, but nowadays it's much also for AI as well. Event websites typically, I found, have not been optimized and therefore do not generate much organic traffic. And that has kind of served okay in the past, but it has, from my observation, seen quite a reliance on elements such as pay-per-click of the email database, social media, etc. And I certainly see that organic search is greatly underutilized, which is ironic because from what I've seen, events have some unique benefits and which enable them to actually perform really well in organic search. So for example, you have amazing content, such as your speaker sessions, speaker bios, etc. And also because lots of people come to your event, you have these things called links. So people link from their websites and other social media platforms to your website. So you have that kind of sorted as well. So it's ironic that an industry in which it has a lot of the things already in place to perform really well, both in Google and in the AI engines, we certainly find a lot of websites, they don't actually put the content and structure their content on their website correctly, so they do actually perform well. There's lots of other industries which would pray for a lot of the benefits that the events industry has and this content and links. So hopefully today I can expand on some of the areas in which you can start to utilize this and make your website perform better. But the main benefits are that you get found and have greater visibility within Google and in AI, that you have traffic to your website, relevant traffic, potential attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, not just before the event in your VisProm and XProm cycle, but all year round. And I'm used to working on websites in which you get traffic all year round. That's very normal for most websites for organic traffic. So not just visitors for visitors' sake, but you can start to build a community, get people to sign up to newsletters, start to constantly replenish and build your email database, so you can start to generate leads not just before the event but all year, and leads for attendees, exhibitors, sponsors, etc. We had a webinar a couple of months ago with MCM Click, in which we had Tom McMahon on from there, who was saying that a well-optimized website, so I appreciate a lot of events do PPC, and that could be a major driver of traffic before and leads before the event. But a well-optimized website for SEO, he was saying that it can save up to 50% of costs on PPC. If your event website has better content, it performs better, it converts better, this can drastically improve the efficiency of your PPC content, of your PPC campaigns. So in many ways, if you're thinking about, oh, I haven't budgeted for SEO, for example, well, let's just think about if you could cut the cost of your PPC, for example, by 50%, how much budget would that free up to maybe do an SEO campaign? Just to bear in mind. So some benefits of why you should optimize. I think is at this point we should have just a little chat about AI and where it kind of sits at the moment in relation to search, how much prominence it has. We hear a lot about it, but the reality is at the moment that Google still, when it comes to people actually doing an organic search online, the majority of it still goes through Google. As you can see here, over 93% goes through Google organic search traffic. And some of the AI tools, it's still a very, very low share currently when it comes to search to finding things, but it's increasing a lot. So about a 4 times increase in the last year. And as you can see with some stats there from the US, there's been quite an increase in AI search between 2024 and up to 2025. So AI is still very small, but it's increasing quite dramatically. Another point to note, as I haven't actually mentioned on this slide, is that not only is AI and people's usage of it increasing dramatically, it's also changing the way in which people search. So in the past, someone may have just typed in, for example, AI conference into Google, but nowadays people might have much longer searches. So for example, what would be the best event for my business, which is looking to invest into an AI company, as an example. So people are typing longer searches, whether it be into an AI engine or into the traditional search engines. And obviously, if you don't have that kind of information on your website, whatever engine is finding that information, they won't find it. So AI is rising dramatically. We're hearing a lot about it, but at the moment, the percentage of searches currently on AI are still relatively small. But how is it changing website optimization? So in many ways, you could argue, well, if the percentage is still very small, why bother changing your website optimization at all? And that's a great question to ask. But what it's doing, it's the changes. If you undertake the fundamentals of optimization, as I've certainly been doing for many, many years, it certainly gives you a great start when it comes to the AI engines. By doing the fundamentals, you will also be optimizing for AI engines too, but they have certain characteristics, which means that you should start to do other things as well. But the great thing is, if you do these other things, it also helps with the traditional search engines too. So there's no duplication of efforts. It's not particularly doing anything that will cause issues with anything else that you're doing. So I think the first point to raise is keywords. I've spoken about keywords in previous webinars, and fundamentally what they are, it's what people type in, it's what people search for. And in the past, people very much focused just on a keyword for a page. So let's say AI conference that someone might be typing in, and you optimize your page for that keyword. People try to manipulate search and manipulate stuff on their pages. And as the search engines and as AI gets smarter and smarter and smarter, what these engines are really looking for is the user intent. what are the, fundamentally, if someone is looking to go to in this example, an AI conference, what really are they looking for? And bear in mind, I mentioned the other items about the searches may be getting longer. So now they might not just be typing in AI conference. I gave you an example earlier of a longer search in which they could be putting in. So I think more than ever, keywords, they're still relevant, but you really need to think about the intent behind those keywords. So if, for example, someone puts in AI conference, AI event, AI seminars, very much they're looking to go to something, they're going to learn something, potentially meet people, and there's a very different intent to if, for example, someone just typed in AI research. So always think when you think of keywords, what is the intent behind there? And that matters more than ever now. What very much the AI engines are now looking for are answers to questions, because people have all the time, we think in questions, we speak to the AI engines in questions. So very much your website, you now need to think about it more into answering those broad range of questions in which people may have, whether it be about your event, about the speakers, about the exhibitors that you have, obviously the logistics about coming to the event, the benefits of why they may want to come, what they might learn there, the topics you may cover, the opportunities they may have to network, other things you may have going on, whether you have investor sessions, and all of the other things that you have. People have a whole raft of questions, and in the past it was okay to possibly just have an FAQ section, but now the website to feed all of these different engines, it needs to be structured in a nice, clean way that they can easily understand, and which, bear in mind that when the answers to these questions are served up, it's now not just potentially going to be on your website, it's going to be within an AI search engine, as well as on Google within the AI section at the top. So nice, well-written, descriptive answers to questions that people might have relating to your event are more important than ever. There's also the concept of authoritative content as well. So is your website an authority within your niche, or is it just an event website? Now, in the past, an event website just did what it said on the tin, but that's only going to generate traffic as you lead up to the event. If you start to become an authority within your topic by publishing blog posts, maybe summaries of conference sessions that have happened, then all the AI engines, as well as traditional search, will start to see you as an authority within the space. And if people have questions that may be not quite as pinpoint about going to, let's say, a specific conference or an event, but they maybe have a question about, in this example, AI, the more authoritative and the more content your website has on it, the more likely it is to serve up information from your website and potentially lead people back to your website. AI is also going to be looking for lots of different forms of content, just like the typical search engines, video, audio. The more information you have on there, the more of a resource it becomes, and the more these engines will feed off of it and drive people back to your website. Remember that your website in this age of AI actually becomes more important than ever. It becomes the source of truth. If someone's doing a search on, let's say, ChatGPT, I'm not sure if you know, but it has a little bit of a bias to want to provide people with an answer. And if it can't find the information, it can make stuff up. So the key thing is to make sure that your event website has all the information about you and which it can then surface to people so it's correct information. So briefly covered that AI is massively on the up. The percentage is still relatively small at the moment, but it's only going in one direction, and therefore I've covered some of the areas in which we need to ensure that your website is AI ready and starts to perform an AI search now. But at the same time, that has the benefit it'll work well for Google and the traditional search engines anyway. So how do we then start to go through the process of thinking about making our website more useful and more likely to get surfaced within these engines? Well, I spoke about in the previous slides about the idea of intent that people might have, and to really get into the minds of your potential visitors onto your website. Quite a bit of research kind of needs to be done to really think about this. So firstly, understanding your market by uncovering trends that your audience is interested in. Now, I'm sure there's members of your team that will be looking into this with conference streams or particular categories of exhibitors or sponsors, etc., that you might have at the event. But it's really drilling down into what some of these key trends and themes may be, and think about it also in terms of things that people may potentially type in as well into Google. So often a mistake in which we find that organizers make is that they maybe use kind of particular industry jargon to describe a certain theme or a certain topic with the event, whereas people may actually type into Google other things. So the first step is to start to think about understanding your market. Just as a side note, the next slide we're going to go through some prompts that you can put into ChatGPT to help you out with some of these things. Competitors can be an amazing source of inspiration in terms of keywords and topics and themes and pages that they might have on their website. So it's certainly worth looking at competitors, even if they're not direct competitors. Let's say they serve another market, another area, another country. Let's say our fictitious AI conference, and let's say we're based in the UK. It would certainly be worth looking at the top ones in the US, in MENA areas, etc. So you can start to get inspiration and ideas from what they're doing that you could potentially implement onto your website. So looking at competitors is extremely valuable, and you can potentially learn from them. And whenever you're looking at a competitor's website, I always think, well, that's great what they're doing. How can I take inspiration from that and make that even better and even more valuable to my own visitors? So looking at event focus as well, we kind of spoken about this understanding the market, but what are the key areas in which your event focuses in on? Do you have any particular types of companies in which you specifically target? So that's useful to know. And then once we have this, we can then start to brainstorm all the different topics and subjects in which you can start to break down, whether it be conference themes or your different exhibitors, etc. When you start to think about this, just think of possibly an e-commerce store in which you have different categories. So if you go onto a shoe shop, you don't just have shoes, do you? You'll have men's, you have ladies, you have boys, you have girls. You'll have maybe sports shoes, you'll maybe have formal shoes. There's all sorts of different types. And in many ways, all we're looking to do is to break your event down into logical categories and terms and phrases in which people actually use, and ones that make sense to people. And this is great not only for search, so when someone comes onto your website, maybe they'll look through the menu, they'll see all the different topics or categories or themes in which you have. And maybe, again, in this fictitious AI conference, someone's only interested in machine learning. If it was just called AI conference, they might consider that too broad. But when they look through your different topics and themes, they see machine learning, that's what they're interested in. They can go and check out the different conference sessions on that, any speakers you have, any exhibitors you have on that. So it's a really useful way of making the website not just better for search, but also for people as well. And then once you've done all of that, we can then start thinking about specific keywords. ChatGPT and the AI engines can be really, really handy for helping you to go through some of this stuff. Whilst obviously you're going to be a great person to know about your event and what you cover and everything. It's also great to get ideas from outside. So ChatGPT is a great place. Obviously the other engines certainly would use those as well and trial those on top of this, whether it be Gemini or Claude, etc. So I've given some very, very brief initial kind of prompts that you could put into search to help start to understand your market, analyzing competitors. So you can certainly take these prompts and start playing with them yourselves to help ChatGPT help you with your research. And one of the top tips I'd also have is to explain exactly what you're doing to ChatGPT, for example, in the Analyze Competitors section. saying you're looking to do that, and how can this prompt be made better, for example. And then they can suggest for you a much more robust prompt, a lot longer than I've delivered here, to help you analyze your competitors in detail. Also, when you start crafting your own prompts, you can then tailor it a bit more to your needs, because maybe you're a certain part of the market that you want to focus in on, and therefore only look at competing companies which target that part of the market rather than others. But ChatGPT is an absolutely fantastic way of then starting to get a really broad picture in terms of your own event and all of these different areas, to ultimately come down to identifying keywords and making sure that the intent is right. Because if you understand, if you've done all this other analysis, you'll know that the keywords in which you're suggesting are actually correct. So for example, if you do have a stream in which you're focusing on about machine learning, for example, obviously that's a keyword in which we want to start testing in the next phase and see if there's any actual search volume that relates to this. So the AI engines are brilliant for coming up with lots and lots and lots of ideas for brainstorming. But one of the problems with them is that you don't actually get search volumes for particular keywords. So let's say machine learning is a particular stream in which you have at your conference, and you therefore think that could be a great keyword to target on a specific page. What we don't know at this stage from AI is how many people are actually searching for it in Google at the moment. So Google does actually give search volumes for this. It can tell you how many people are searching, for example, in the US or in the UK per month for that particular keyword. Now, if there's only 3 people searching, obviously not a particularly great keyword to go after, whereas if there's 3,000 people, that certainly is. So the keyword volumes, so once you have lots of ideas of keywords from your previous step, actually getting volumes of a number of people searching for these keywords is critical, because you want to be going for keywords with high number of searches a month and ones which are obviously relevant to your events. There are a couple of tools in which you can use for this. There's Google Keyword Planner, which is a free tool within the Google Ads suite. It's not the easiest to use, if I'm honest, so I generally don't use that, but it is available and it is free. When you get the slides, I've got a link to it at the below. There's Keyword Keg. It's a paid-for tool. That's the one I use. It's much easier to use. It's much quicker. It gives you ideas in terms of questions that people could be asking and a whole lot more. Sometimes if you're going to do keyword research, you could sign up to Keyword Keg, maybe keep it running for a couple of months just whilst you're doing the research, and then save a bit of money and cancel the subscription afterwards. So there's a couple of options there. There's other keyword tools too. There's lots of stuff out there, but those are 2 ones which I can point you towards. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about keyword research, it is a bit of a subject in itself. We do have a webinar, and I've put the link down here, in which I covered this in a lot more detail, which we did a few months ago, so go and check that one out. So I said here about turning a website into subtopics, or primary topics and subtopics, because you have to imagine that when any form of search engine comes to your website, they're trying to make sense of it. You know, what is your website about? And the big mistake I've seen so many events doing is it's basically their brand, is their topic, and that's kind of about it. And there's other pages, maybe some speaker pages, some exhibitor pages. But in terms of the search engines trying to understand what your website is about and the words that are actually on there, hasn't really been broken into topics. So again, going back to the kind of the e-commerce store example, is, you know, are you a shoe shop? In this example, you're an event about artificial intelligence. So we need to define this first of all, which is what will be targeted on the homepage, as well as your brand's term. And then what are the subtopics that you have relating to this event too? So machine learning, robotics, data science. What are the keywords? And we've been through all of those steps before, how you can use ChatGPT to help brainstorm, etc., and then use the keyword tools to actually then find the search volume relating to those. So we want subtopics ideally which you both target and have lots of people searching for them within Google as well. So once you've identified, this is kind of where I start when I'm optimizing a website, homepage, and then some primary subtopics. So when a search engine comes onto your website, or even when Google Ads, for example, is also reading your website and needing to understand the type of people to send, it's now got a much better idea because it actually knows the topics that you cover in a lot more detail. In addition to the homepage and the subtopic pages, to really turn your website from an event site into an informational resource, we need to start to get supporting content too. So this will in the form of blog posts, guides, white papers, any form of content that you potentially have available. One of the things in which we certainly help clients with is where we turn conference sessions, so get them recorded, transcribed, get them turned into an article, and then optimized for specific keywords with keyword search. So supporting content to really turn your website from an event website into an informational resource with more and more and an ever growing amount of blog posts, articles, guides, etc. That really gives, remember before I said about AI looking for kind of knowledge, and this is where it really starts to then to trust your website because of the huge, and one thing I've mentioned on previous webinars, it's not only the content you're publishing, it's who's published it. So in the particular example of a conference session, you have authoritative people who may have given the talk, and with their name against that article, it makes it worth a lot more and adds a lot more value to your website. In addition, you have speakers and exhibitors. Katie is publishing a blog post this week about the value of speaker and exhibitor content. Traditionally, what's happened in the past is people will often, whether speaker or exhibitor, will copy and paste information from elsewhere, LinkedIn bio, company profile, etc., and just plonk them onto the page on your website for their own profile. Huge opportunity missed both for them and for you. If it's unique content that adds value, potentially it can also rank well in search, rank well in the AI engines, drive traffic to your website. But the key thing is that content needs to be unique, original, and well written. Oops, some of the formatting seems to have gone here, so apologies for that. But so the fundamentals, if people have been onto my webinars before, there may be a few elements there that they've heard before. And that's because many of the fundamentals about SEO, whether it was just Google before and now relating to AI, they do actually remain the same. So elements such as, and I'll be going on in a second, we can go live onto an ASP site, and I'll be running through this process in a bit more granular detail. Actually, let's see if I can make this smaller so it reads better. No. Oh well. So a lot of the fundamentals remain the same. There are many elements on a web page, things that are read by search engines. You have things called page titles. So that's what you see when you do a search in Google. So for example, if you do a down in the organic search here, this top element is called the page title, and that is something that you can define. Really important, AI engines and search engines read those. We've got H1 titles, so that's the main title on the page that they'll read that too. Something called meta descriptions. Again, if you go back to Google, this is called a meta description. Very important because if it's well written, it will entice you to click on the result. Google likes things that are well written, and if people click on one result versus another, it'll boost them up the search results, and it certainly helps in AI too. AI will read that. Subheadings, so if the page is well written and it's logical and people read it and they scroll down the page, that will help, as well as internal linking. So let's say, for example, I mentioned about the different topics and categories. If you've got good links from your main menu within the home page and linking to sub pages, that certainly helps as well. Page content is obviously critical. All pages need to be written for the user rather from search engines, add real value, information that is there and genuinely useful, and also answer people's questions that they might be asking that might be relevant to that particular page. So if it's the home page, some top level questions at the bottom that assume people who haven't been to the website before and been to your event before, all the things that people might need to know: where it is, what time it is, how to get there, what sort of speakers you have, kind of exhibitors they can go and see, etc., etc. It's no problem to have FAQs on a number of pages. Now it's a lot easier to write them because you have AI, and as long as they're relevant to that page and maybe slightly rewritten and tailored for that page. So FAQs are extremely valuable. And finally, what we can do now is use tools such as phrase.io, which can then benchmark the page that you've written against other top ranking pages within Google, see how yours compares with others. I'll show you how to do this in a walkthrough example in a second. And we can then make tweaks to the copy on your page, so it covers all of the kind of topics that other pages do too, to make sure that it's not only as good as, but better than your competitors' pages. Okay, phrase.io is probably one of my favorite website optimizing tools. And like I've said before, what it basically does is it does a comparison of looking at all of your competitors' pages for a particular term. So in this example, I'm going to look at, we're looking to optimize a page about machine learning. So one of the best ways to do this is to then look at competitors' pages for the keyword in which you're looking to optimize for. So we've done the research. We decided to go for a machine learning conference because it has a good number of monthly searches, and it'd be a bit manual to do this, a bit time consuming to do this manually, to go through all of these, but instead in Phrase, this can look at the content on all of these pages automatically, and then give ideas as to how your page could be improved. So in this example, let's assume we are this event. So MLCon, I believe MLCon was it's position number 3. They're not one of our clients, and they want to go up to number 1. So number 3 is not good enough. They want to boost up to number 1. So let's see what we can do to improve MLCon so it gets up to the top of search. So the first thing we can do is, so we have some content that's been written on this page. We can put this into Phrase and see how this content can be improved. So here we have Phrase, so it's phrase.io. I'm going to grab all of this content, but assume that you've either written new content or you're grabbing it from an existing page. And if I put that into Phrase, we have that there. Where people often go wrong when they use Phrase is the search query in which they've added in. This is the keyword. This is a keyword which was a result of all of that research that I spoke about in the previous slides. So this is something which we know is relevant. There's lots of user intent behind this, and there's actual search volume too. So the key thing is you have the right keyword in here. So we add that in. Now what Phrase is doing, like I said, it's going off and looking at lots of your competitors' web pages, and then it will benchmark this content here versus competitors. So it takes a little bit of time to do this, but as you can see, it's running through different websites here. It's actually doing our own website. You can actually remove your own website if you want to, so you don't compare yourself against yourself, but just for this example, we can just see how it's working. What you'll note actually, if you look at this page here, this is just the text which has been copied and pasted from this home page. Obviously, when you look through the home page, there looks to be a fair amount on there. But what's interesting, I always find, when you actually copy and paste this or look behind the scenes, So the actual amount of content is not that much. This is the actual amount of written, and I find this quite regularly, that the actual written content that Google and the other AI engines have to go on from this is not actually a great deal. So you can see, actually, as we go through this, why it's a good idea to add some more information, basically. So by pressing this button here, we can see our overall score. So on average, competitors are scoring 39, and we have a score here of 24. So, and then down here on the right-hand side, we have lots of different words and terms that appear on others' websites. So we can see where it's green, this appears on our website, but when it's grey, it doesn't. But these are terms that appear on other people's websites. So there's lots of things down here, so we can add these in to start to. These are elements that might be relevant to add to your page. Again, only add stuff that's actually relevant to the page. There's no point in adding artificial intelligence if it's not relevant to the page in which we're optimizing here. But by adding these, it starts to improve our score. So if we add a few of these on here, I'm not going to particularly at this stage look at which ones are relevant or not. But the key point is, if you start to add relevant terms in here, it increases your score. In terms of how much I increase this by, it's not particularly scientific, but I like to kind of knock it out the park. So I think if our competitors had an average score of 39, 45, I'd like to get quite a bit above them. Basically because what happens if your competitors go off and do a bit of seen a webinar and go off and do a bit of optimization work themselves, they could then quickly go above your score. So why don't we just make sure that your page is as good as it possibly can be and relevant. Okay, a lot of these probably are not particularly relevant because I'm not an expert in AI conferences, but okay, so we've now got lots of keywords here. Our optimization score is now 80%, and somehow we need to get all of these additional keywords into the copy on this page. Now, the way I like to do it is by adding some FAQs at the bottom. Certainly not the only way. There's lots of other ways in which you can incorporate new content, etc., onto a page, but simply do it because it's relatively quick and easy often to do this, and can be just added at the bottom, and we find it works really well. So I'll show you that method on how to do this with ChatGPT. If you're doing it within certain particular other elements on the page, you just have to change your instructions to ChatGPT a little bit, but I'm going to ask it to do FAQs. So if we go over to, so I've got ChatGPT open, I'll have a prompt which I can share with you afterwards. And this is about, can it help me to create some useful FAQs for this page? So I've given it the event name, URL. I've got some instructions here on creating some FAQs and put into different themes. I can add my keyword list in, and I have the content from the page which I've already added in. But let's just grab this keyword list. I'll add this into here. And I'll now copy and paste this into ChatGPT to get it to write me some FAQs. So here we go. And I generally find it does a pretty fantastic job. So about the event. Obviously, before you publish these, you'd need to read them through properly, make sure they read okay. But from first glance, they certainly look okay. So what I'm going to do is just now pop these back into phrase. And now it's actually some proper written text. see what impact this has on our overall score, and it's 70%. So as you can see, it's now incorporated a lot of these different words which have been highlighted as suggested on the right hand side, and dramatically increased the score, and also dramatically increased the amount of actually written content on the page. As you see, this is what we have here. And bear in mind, with FAQs, we can quite sympathetically add them as accordions, etc. at the bottom that expand out, so they don't need to be intrusive to the user. And we often find from our testing that people do scroll down the page, and they certainly do interact with the accordions and read these, especially when they're well written and genuinely add value. Again, it's about genuinely adding value, and at the same time using some tools like this to make sure that it works well in search. So we now have some FAQs in which we can add to that page. Let's just double check we haven't got any questions. No. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to fire them through. So we've gone through, created some FAQs. Bear in mind, these were created by phrase looking in detail at the top ranking competitors for the keyword in which you're targeting. And then by feeding in some particular words and terms that appear on competitors' sites, we have now added them as FAQs, which we can add to your page. Okay, so how do we actually, oops, I have just realized I've forgotten to, so we've done the FAQs on the page. We now have something called the page title and meta description, and which we could do with some help from ChatGPT to write these too. So I'll just go through that process very quickly. So again, I've got some instructions here. So you can see when we put these onto ASP platform, where the page title and meta description go. So we want a title, which is a maximum of 60 characters. Remember that the page title is what appears here. We have a description, which is a maximum of 160 characters. And just to remind you, this is what appears here. It needs to be well written, attracting a click. So we're giving it some guidance of what needs to put on. So we just need to, the page content is as above. Okay, so let's put that into ChatGPT. I'll say target keyword, machine learning. Okay, so we've got a page title and meta description. Okay, so how do we add this in on our page in ASP? Yep, so it's logged me out. Let's go back in again. So a page. Webinar test page. Okay, so the page title, this goes into page options, SEO. We called it meta title, page title. They're interchangeable terms for that. So if we go to ChatGPT, has just written that. So we take that and put that in there. So we note we've got our keyword, which is in here. And then we have our meta description. Oops. Should we grab from here? Put that in here. Note things such as calls to action, book your place today, where it is. date, etc. Key information that make people want to actually, from looking at this manually, it looks like we could probably do a better job in adding the date in, but you can see the principle of where that came from and where to add that in. Just for your information, for those of you who have not played around with the SEO settings within Show Off, there's a couple of key elements down here. For your page, you certainly don't want it to be no index. That means that it's going to block all of the search engines. So by default, it'll be set as parent default, which is the parent page, which is likely to be index follow, which is allowing the search engines. But if you have a specific page which you do not want to be in the search engines, you can set into no index follow. So just so you know what that is. And a canonical URL, that is if you're saying there's another page, your page is very similar to another page, but it's useful for people. So you don't want the search engines to look at two pages and be confused, which is the original. So if another one is the original, just put that in there. But just so you know what those are. The page title is really important. For key pages such as your home page and your primary topic pages, getting your keywords in here is extremely important. And even just doing that can make a massive difference in terms of search performance. The number of websites I look at in which you'll look at this, and it might just say home or it might just say the brand name. By adding in the keyword here, it makes a massive difference. So we submit that, and then getting the content into the page. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. So let's just grab this from ChatGPT. ASP, especially in Composer 2, we have an FAQ widget, accordion, so we can make this look nice, etc., etc. So I've just added that in. So fundamentally now, you have optimized a web page. You have optimized, you've identified the keyword, which we know has search volume that relates to themes that people are looking for, that you cover on the events, and which has genuine intent behind it. You've optimized the page title. We've added a meta description, which makes people want to click through when they see the result in search. And also by reviewing lots of the other competitors, we've come up with words which are really useful for people, but also cover topics, etc., which your event covers, but also are covered in other pages too. So your page is fundamentally a lot more useful, and which means the search engines also have a lot more information about your event, and which will help you appear at the top of search, as well as pulling through information in ChatGPT, etc. So it's making your page a lot more useful and a lot more visible. Hopefully that made sense. Certainly when using any of these software programs, it takes a little bit of time to obviously have a little go yourself, work your way through it. Phrase, like I've said, I certainly find extremely valuable. It works very well when you go through this process of optimizing pages, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. It's not too complex, as you've seen. So you can start using that, especially in tandem now with ChatGPT. Phrase does have a subscription, unfortunately, so you will need to sign up for that. Again, I'd suggest if you have a project of optimizing a few pages, maybe pay for the subscription for a few months and then cancel, but it's pretty affordable. It's only a few dollars a month. In terms of other elements on the page, I've mentioned before about speakers. We certainly find with conferences, and certainly with some clients, it could be their speakers could be one of the main areas of driving content. People are looking for particular people. Sometimes the speaker bio on your event could actually appear higher than their own LinkedIn profile or maybe their own website. So they can be a major draw of traffic. Certainly, so therefore it's really worth making sure that their bios are well written and unique. And exactly the same with exhibitors. Can be a great source of traffic. Typically we find, however, it's kind of the mid-band exhibitors that do well. If you had Microsoft or Apple at your events, it's hardly likely that your your profile page is going to appear higher than their website. But for some of the smaller companies, exhibitors can be a major draw of traffic to the website. We're working with a client at the moment who has really quite small businesses as exhibitors, quite a few of them, and which they are actually the major draw of traffic, but just going through the process at the moment of rewriting a number of their bio pages to make sure that they're unique and relevant to the event itself. And I've mentioned also the actual format of the content is important as well, how it's written, and how adding FAQs at the bottom could be really helpful as well. Hopefully that kind of practical sort of walkthrough, I know it was fairly quick, was useful, just to hopefully kind of demystify a little bit. I know people see optimization as a little bit of a dark art sometimes. It actually isn't. It's a kind of a methodical process, but you really do have to go through all the different steps and kind of not miss them out, because that's when you can start to create content that that people and the AI engines will really value. So in terms of quick wins, I'd certainly look at homepage and primary topic pages as page titles and meta descriptions, adding some FAQs on there and some content, just as I've done here. Internal links, people often ask, well, do I need to have can they be hidden pages from the from visitors? Well, the idea of these is they're actually really valuable pages that visitors will want to actually go to. But also if they're hidden and no one can find them and search engines can't find them, they'll not get value either. You need to have links from the home page, you need to have links from the main menu, so they really help too. And then as you start to build the website and start to move it, as I say, away from just an event site to more of an authority site with content, we can now start to build a library of articles and blog posts, etc., around specific themes. And we can start working on all the different speakers and exhibitors and upgrading all of their bios. And this will make your website a lot more ready for AI as it ever increases. So some takeaways as we're approaching the end. Google certainly still does dominate, and by a country mile, to be honest. So we cannot ignore that. It's very easy to get caught up in what's happening with AI, but Google really still does dominate. So we need to be aware of that still and not lose sight of that. But everything I've spoken about today means your website will work really well in Google. But AI is rising, and I think as much as anything, it's just thinking about the way in which it's now changing the way people are searching for stuff. They're asking more specific and longer questions, and now your website needs to be that source of truth in which it answers those questions in greater depth and in greater detail. If you do optimize your website, it will certainly start to make you less reliant upon some of the maybe more traditional channels. Obviously, there's paid search. It can potentially make paid search more effective. I know paid search is fantastic when it comes to, that final push for getting registrations, etc. But optimizing the site can certainly make it more efficient, and just diversify where you get your traffic from. Certainly if you get more content on the website, it gives you lots of material in which you can then publish on social media, etc. You have lots of articles that are being published. You can then promote those via social. So it gives you plenty of stuff you can talk about year round, and it will certainly give you year-round traffic to start to build up your email database and refill that. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions there, John. Do you want me to read them out for you, or can you see them?
Let's have a look. Okay.
I've got that. Cool.
Any free alternatives to phrase? If you find one, please let me know. Unfortunately not. Adds a lot of value, phrase does. So hence the reason why it's paid for. It's not expensive. So like I suggest, I would think of when your project is that you're looking to work on this, and maybe just have it running for a month or two, and then it'll keep the cost down. ChatGPT didn't use the dates for my title or description either. Is no date a best practice? If you're trying to push people to an event on a specific date, especially on the home page, I certainly would put the date in. Obviously, you need to remember to then go and update that once the event's happened. It all comes, if you imagine the page title, the meta description is very much like a two-line ad, in which you want to give lots of reasons and lots of information why people want to then click onto that. So I certainly think adding dates is a good idea. Once you go in greater depth into the site, let's say it's a blog post, or let's say it's a contact us page, privacy policy, you certainly don't want to be starting to put dates on that, but certainly for homepage and primary kind of topic theme pages, I certainly would, but only if you have the kind of procedures in which you can then update them after. If it's likely that they aren't going to get updated afterwards, you certainly don't want to have misleading information on there, and if you're not confident in that, maybe don't put the date on. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. If there's any other, Katie, please let me know.
No, that's it for now.
Fantastic. Like with all of our webinars, have a nice little few freebies at the end. If anyone would like to get a homepage audit, you can just go to that page on our website, and we can do that for you. Sometimes people haven't budgeted for SEO, so for optimization, so we do something called optimization time, where you can just get kind of a small amount of work done, so you can see the quality of the work and how it can add value before any kind of larger commitment. And a particular popular service at the moment is our AV to article, where we turn conference and the amazing conference content that you have into optimized articles, and these are optimized to actual keywords with search. So that's where we add value, by making sure that it's against keywords that have actually got search volume, and do all those checks through the likes of Keyword Cake, etc. It's much more than just a ChatGPT job. So if any of those are interest, check those out. And we've also got a webinar, details will be on the website, which is coming up. We're going to have, next webinar is going to be with Grip to talk about registration and how we can improve conversions. So looking forward to that. So keep an eye on our website, and we'll be sending emails out and notifications on that too. Final shout for any questions? No, I think that's it. Well, if you have any others, please feel free to drop me a line, and hope you found that useful, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Take care.